Hello there, so let's talk turkey in this particular episode. What we're going to look at today is hidden sugars. Now, hidden sugars represent a real issue for us because, and here's a nice little example, I went to the health food shop and I bought myself 2 cans of baked beans. It's nice to have a little bit of convenience food in the house for those rare times when you haven't got time to make yourself something decent, so I thought, okay, fair enough. And I've been using both these brands for a while. And I had to take myself off to one side and give myself a bit of a talking to, because it wasn't until I turned over the back of the can, got my microscope out and looked at the ingredients. And have you noticed this? That's right, the ingredients on the back of containers are so much smaller. It's as if they don't really want you to be bothered to read the ingredients. They don't. That is the deal. If everyone's a bit addicted to sugar, you've got a nice, docile, easily controlled population. So that's what they would like. So what you do is you become a label hunter, and everything that you buy that you haven't checked the label of when you go to shop anywhere, you just check the label. So what does this one contain? And I had a real shock because I discovered this one actually contains sugar. That's right. So basically my baked beans have been polluted with sugar, no matter how organic and wonderful they might be. Poor choice. However, this one, and I'll tell you, to be really honest, this one's got lots of really interesting ingredients, including sea vegetables, really good, but doesn't taste as conventional. So this one, when I checked through the ingredients, no sugar whatsoever, totally fine. So this brings up the whole question of hidden sugars. So what I invite you to do is the next time you go shopping, if you need to take your glasses, your magnifying glass, your microscope, whatever, by all means. And if you can see really, really tiny letters, lucky you, that's great. And just look at the ingredients of everything you buy, whatever it is. And then you start to get your first shocks. Oh, right, so bread contains sugar? Oh, right, didn't realise that. We've just discovered about the baked beans. And it's on down the rabbit hole. Biscuits, of course, cakes, of course, but then even the savoury biscuits you will sometimes discover they've contained sugar as well. And so what you are is you're really nice and deep down the rabbit hole. And then if you look at foods from the chill cabinet in the supermarket, pretty much all of them will contain sugar. So you start to become aware of the fact that if you want to eat healthy and you want to balance your body and break through the sugar habit, it's time to go to the fresh fruit and the fresh vegetables, because they're always better for you, and you know that anyway. It's just that now you're on a mission with this thing about cutting out the refined sugar from your diet. And let's just remind ourselves, why are we doing this? Because we want more energy, more vitality. We want to feel more connected, more grounded. We don't want to punish our organs and have an early collapse, which is what happens when someone gets diabetes. Diabetes is just the collapse of the organs and the pancreas starting to pack in because it's been hammered so hard for so long. We even have children with diabetes now, which shows that it's reaching the point that the human race just can't carry on in this way. So look at the label, investigate the ingredients, and here's the other thing you need to point out. The cuisine from certain parts of the world is completely laced with sugar. I particularly want to draw your attention to food from the Philippines and from Thailand. There's a very high probability that even when you go and sit down in a restaurant, they've been throwing sugar by the armload, loads and loads of it into all the food. You want to avoid that kind of food, which then brings up the other wonderful realization: when you make your own food, when you cook your own food, make your own salad, whatever it is, you're in control, you're putting what you want in there. When you really go into it, you'll be amazed at where you'll find hidden sugar. A simple example, I ordered a pesto and vegetables meal on an airline. I thought, well, that's very cool, they got that, that's fine. And then I ate it and I looked at the ingredients afterwards, and there it was, right high up. So this brings up the other important point. When it comes to investigation, looking for hidden sugars, this is the way it works. It can be called sugar, it can be called sucrose, it can be called sucralose. Let's just confuse everyone with a fancy name. All the same dodgy stuff. So this is what you want to be looking at. You want to be looking at how near the beginning of the list is this magic word sugar. If the word sugar is near the beginning of the list after the word ingredients, that means that the percentage is high. If the sugar is right back at the end of the list, that means its percentage is low. So the nearer to the front of the list, the higher the quantity of sugar in that particular food. The further to the end of the list, the less. Now, here's another thing to look at. When people want to take a step away from sugar, they think, okay, well, I won't buy all the normal sweets and chocolates in the shops. Yes, I'll make my own raw chocolate, I get that. But I'll tell you what, I'll go to the health food store and get some nice alternative bars, eat natural, healthy, whatever they might call them, groovy bars, yeah? You've seen all these bars. Don't trust them an inch. Don't trust them a nanometer. So I can get the glass out and check the ingredients. A friend recently presented me with a bar and it was called Eat Natural, I think that was the name, and I looked at it. 4 different kinds of sugar in that Eat Natural bar. All the refined sugar, all the dodgy stuff, that's right, but in 4 different places in the list of ingredients. They didn't just put it in once, they put it in 4 times. So this is really reminding you that life is snakes and ladders. It's ladders up to paradise, it's snakes down to perdition. It really is that simple. So don't trust, if it's in a packet, don't trust it. Read the label and make your own informed choice, and be surprised. And there are really great products out there which are completely sugar free and only will have fruit sugars and fruits and things like that in them. They do exist, but don't trust them until you've had a darn good look at the label, and you'll discover that this it's an initiation in itself, because as you're doing this, you're taking more awareness and more control about what it is you're putting in your body, and you'll start to feel the slow, steady increase in well-being. And here's something I do need to point out. When people are in the early days of releasing the sugar habit, you may experience headache or other symptoms, and these will pass so long as you drink plenty of water. So here's the other really important thing when it comes to letting go of the sugar habit. While you let go of the sugar habit, make really sure you embrace the water habit. This is very important when you're eating dried fruit. If you eat more dried fruit, you're going to need to drink more water. Stands to reason, doesn't it? When you've taken yourself through these steps, working with the raw honey, then the dried fruits, then the alternative sweeteners, and then becoming a detective when it comes to buying things from the shops and making sure you're not buying anything containing any hidden sugar. By the time you want to start to phase out this dried fruit, it's time to really embrace your fresh fruits. Whichever fresh fruits you have in your particular part of the world, it's time to embrace them, because they contain sugars which the body is going to have to digest to get the sugars out. So this is very, very helpful for you. And in the early days of your taking this particular step, be really liberal and generous with these foods. Eat fruit whenever you feel like it. The more the better, whilst you're in the process of coming off the sugar. However, there will come a point when, if you're really mindful, you might notice that actually, okay, so instead of eating lots and lots of things that contain refined sugar, now I'm eating loads and loads of fruit. And how am I feeling about that? And you eventually get to the point when you realise that there's another step to take. And this may take a while. It may be a few months down the line from your original exciting choice to let go of your sugar habit. But when you realise that you are eating a lot of fruit, then what I invite you to do is to start to embrace the vegetables with more sweetness, particularly things like the carrots, onions. Now, onions, sweetness, oh yes, when you actually learn to do really good things with onions. So a great thing to do with onions is to slice them thinly into half moons and to cook them with coconut oil and a tiny little bit of salt, and allow the onions to sweat and caramelize. And when they do that, they are amazing, and that brings out the sweetness. If you were to cook them with carrots or with pumpkin, then you get a real increase in the sweetness. And this sweetness, because you move from the fruit into the vegetable, is taking the body even more time to digest. It sustains you for that much longer. This is a really helpful thing to do. So making the step whereby you're starting to decrease the fruits in your diet and increase the vegetables, whether they be raw or whether they be cooked. By the time you get to this point in your journey, you are really making a huge difference. You're feeling so much better, and life is just so much more wonderful than it used to be when you were completely habituated. So celebrate these steps that you're taking. I was once having a chat with a guy, and he was in the process of losing weight, and he made himself a coffee, and he put some artificial sweeteners in the coffee. So here's the other thing. If you're interested in letting go of the sugar habit, what about all these diet drinks? What about Coke Zero? What about whatever they call them, all the carbonated beverages that don't contain sugar? What about the artificial sweeteners that people put in their teas and their coffees? Well, yes, you might have guessed it, I'm sure. You've got three particular substances here. You've got sodium saccharin, you've got aspartame and acetylsulfame K. Now, all these things are even nastier than they sound. Those names don't sound very nice, do they? Well, you're absolutely right. These are basically body poisons. They're highly toxic. They are strongly implicated in severe degenerative diseases. Basically, make sure you avoid them like the plague. Given the choice between refined sugar and artificial sweeteners, go back to refined sugar. So much safer. That's despite everything I've been saying about it. Yes, so much safer than the artificial sweeteners. So if you've ever made that particular leap from consuming sugar into consuming artificial sweeteners, thinking you're doing yourself a favour, draw yourself up short. Don't take my word for it. Go online, do your research, find out about how these substances came to be put into foods. Find out about acetylsulfame K. Find out about where it comes from, on aspartame and sodium saccharin. Be shocked, be disgusted, and leave them out of your body completely. Then there are the other sugar alcohols like sorbitol and mannitol. If people buy chocolates and other treats for diabetics, and they're from a store that specialises in selling these diabetic products, when you actually look, you'll find instead of the sugar they've got sorbitol or mannitol. These are sugar alcohols. They are not good for the body. They don't work well. They are best avoided. So it's back to the raw honey, the dried fruit and all those good things. Okay, really clear about that now, aren't we? Great, cheers.